Joel. I'm good, and you?
Good, I'm doing well.
Or whatever. Kind of insane for you, Joel.
They're, they're getting. All the politicians asking what's going on. And calling me. And yeah.
Eighth? Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Tuesday, June 2nd, 2022 meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. Customers wishing to address the commission for items that are not on the agenda are requested to fill out a form located in the back of the room and give it to the administrative assistant in attendance to the meeting, at the meeting prior to speaking. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda item other than the rate hearings will be given an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Each customer will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. We are here to listen. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email on anything we cannot be resolved this evening. Is anybody going to? No, there's nobody here that will be addressing the commission. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Paulson, seconded by McDougall to approve the meeting's agenda. Hendrickson?
Aye.
McDougall?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Thompson, yes. I'd entertain a motion now to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second?
I have a motion by Hendrickson, seconded by Paulson to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Paulson?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Hendrickson?
Aye.
Thompson, yes. Customers to be heard or recognitions, anything, Mr. Schmidt?
There, now it's working.
Yeah, no, it's,
Nothing tonight.
okay, any old business? Okay, moving on, reports, City Council, Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing, we haven't had a council meeting in a couple of weeks, so nothing. And I do apologize for being late. I was in a meeting with Clay County clear across town, so I thought it'd end a little bit sooner, but again, my apologies. But nothing to report with the City Council. It's my wife's birthday today, so happy birthday if you're watching it.
All right, thank you for that report. Public Service Commission, I don't think anybody's had any subcommittees or anything. General Manager's report, Mr. Schmidt.
Sure. Just one item in the general manager report. It's the APPA Public Power Pays Back report. It's a report that APPA puts, our American Public Power Association puts on annually. This is 2020 data, just again provides the value of public power. Again, MPS is typically higher than industry averages. Related to this article, typically we give about 21-22% of gross revenues to the city of Moorhead. The article kind of talks about 20% higher over investor-owned utilities or cooperatives. They give about 5.1%, where public power gives about 6.1%. So good information on that, and the actual report is attached as well too.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to accept the General Manager's report.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Item number 9, accept business case for AMI.
Sure. I'm going to have Taylor Holt with our electric distribution engineer, and then we've got Stuart. Stuart, I forgot your last name.
Anderson.
Yeah, Stuart Anderson on from DGR Engineering. They're the consultant that we've hired to help us with the AMI business case and actually the project itself as well too. Again, we've been looking at AMI for probably a good decade. Staff has reviewed the business case. That includes water, electric, IT, finance, and admin. Just understanding the full value of the business case that's provided. We know it's not going to provide a full return on investment or pay itself off over the 10 years that we're looking at within the business case, but it does provide value and value for operational and for the customers. Again, Taylor, I'll let Taylor and Stuart give an overview of the business case and then next steps.
In October of 2021, the Moorhead Public Service Commission approved task order number 7 with DGR Engineering for the AMI planning and implementation project. What is being presented today is the first part of 3 total parts within the scope of that task order. What you will find in this business case are the potential benefits that an AMI system can provide your electric and water utility. These benefits can be separated into two different groups. We define them as qualitative and quantitative. A good example to describe this is with the new meters that would be installed, we would have a cutoff feature, which would put a switch in the electrical meters. Currently, our electric meter technician has to either install it to have the power on or pull the meter to turn the power off. This requires an employee to physically go to the location and perform all those procedures. We would get a quantitative benefit with these remote shutoff capabilities, where we would just be able to activate or deactivate the meter from the office. Along those lines, this same switch provides us with a qualitative benefit by not putting or possibly putting an employee in harm's way. This could be through either an unruly customer or a dog experience. Either way, we're reaping benefits. The business case touches on several ways that MPS can save money by implementing the AMI system. One of these major points has to do with our existing water meters. The water department has about $1 million worth of expected maintenance costs over the next several years to replace the aging parts of water meters. Rather than spending this large amount of money replacing these parts that almost cost just as much as a new meter, we could use the funds to upgrade the meters to an AMI compatible meter. This means that the maintenance costs can be utilized to upgrade to a current age system rather than reinvesting into an outdated system. Although the $1 million deal sounds great for the water department, you will find that throughout the expected life of the system, as Travis said, we are unable to show that the system will provide a financial return large enough to pay for the initial costs of the system. What the business case needs to show is that the qualitative benefits provide a great enough value, or greater than or equal value to the financial shortcomings. One of the main drivers that has caused AMI to become a large topic over the last few years is that MRES has been preparing to transition to time of use rates in 2023. MPS cannot currently offer time of use rates with the current metering system. Time of use rates allow a utility to incentivize consumption of electricity when it is cheaper and disincentivize consumption when it is more expensive. These different time periods are very consistent, and we use the terms on-peak and off-peak to describe these time periods. By offering a lower rate during off-peak times, customers can use electricity while not increasing the power expenses of the utility. By setting higher rates during on-peak times, customers that do use electricity during these times will pay these higher rates to help offset the higher power costs that the utility undertakes at those times. I would like to reinforce what I stated earlier, that what we're asking the Commission today is to accept the business case and approve moving forward onto the design development phase of task order number 7 with DGR Engineering. This approval allows us to continue moving forward to begin identifying the features and system components that are desired, as well as perform the vetting of potential manufacturers and their products. We would then come back to the Commission with this further information and request approval to go out for bid. There are no financial commitments being made today. Are there any questions, or should we move on to Stuart's part of the presentation?
One item, I just wanted to note there is an error in the write-up. It says 1.2 million for the AMI system. That should be 12 million. There's a decimal point error on the write-up. So just note that. Other than that, like you said, Missouri River's moving to time of use rates for wholesale. Again, we can't offer that at a retail to our customers without going forward with AMI, and then we'll let Stuart go ahead and talk on his stuff as well.
Hi, like Travis and Taylor said, Stuart Anderson. Thanks for having me today. Taylor and Travis kind of touched on, some of the things at a high level. We looked at creating a business case to try and create figure out what those qualitative and quantitative factors are in evaluating an AMI system and whether or not it's a good business decision to pursue. Like Travis said, the business case, does not lead to being able to pay for itself, but we did run a number of quantitative metrics to try and identify those as well as we could. So just to back up here a little bit, for anybody that's not familiar with what AMI is, advanced metering infrastructure, and it provides real-time and actionable information about the system performance, power quality, and outages. We can use this like Taylor and I mentioned to connect or disconnect service to automatically schedule meter reading that is accurate and fast. We can use it to monitor voltages, identify and isolate outages, and there's other customer service benefits like leak detection and potentially, from an administrative perspective, fewer billing cycles. So, there's also an environmental impact of less vehicles on the road, so reducing our carbon footprint. Like Taylor said about increased personnel safety. Another thing to add on to that is you won't be driving on the road, and you're also being able to detect meter tampering, as well as gaining revenue from greater meter accuracy for replacing some of the oldest water meters on your system, because it's a known fact that over time mechanical water meters are less accurate. That's mostly the qualitative type of things, but there's a few different types of communication medium for an AMI system. You have kind of a self-healing mesh wireless, as we call it, that all the meters kind of talk to each other, and if it loses its route home back to the server, then it can find a different route or jump between meter to meter and make its way back. There's a licensed wireless. It's a private network where you install antennas on a water tower or some kind of a tower, and all the meters talk directly back to those identified points. And the benefit there is the private network would be less traffic, whereas the mesh wireless system would be more of it's on a public spectrum. And there's also a cellular option out there too, which can be used as a primary means or for hard to reach areas if the other two methods we talked about can't reach the hard to reach meter. So different companies offer different mediums for communications, but you kind of, the meter talks back to the server, and then produces that to the database, and then the database can be queried for meter reads and disconnects. One other thing as far as a different driver, the Missouri River's time of use is and the aging equipment of the water is there's just the technology advances in keeping up with the times, and also load management aspect to all of this as well, because you can saving revenue, you're increasing revenue by being able to reduce your demand charges. So on to the quantitative. we identified based off the $12 million budgetary estimate and 20,000 electric meters and 15,000 water meters, that an annual savings of 352,910 is the number that we came up with. And that number is based off of information that we gathered from MPS on equipment usage, personnel wages. We factored in inflation and total compensation for their wage, which we use a 31% number for that. We tried to use a 10-year average for that, and we tried to be conservative overall. But we did, have wage increases included into those calculations. You have two meter readers right now, maybe 4.5 hours a week, dedicated to reading meters. We looked at disconnects, about 1,700 disconnects a year. Then we tried to net out how the office personnel's time for an AMI system, kind of figure out how much time we'd actually be saving. There's also a final reads impact for someone moves out of an apartment, and we factored in getting that final read for that final billing to that person. We're looking at 6,100 of those a year, the 10-year average. And then we also looked at the savings we would get for the water meters and the encoder receiver transmitter, or the ERT replacement, which is the ERT is the part that digitizes the water meters, digitizes the water meter calculation. Oh, and we looked at 5,000 of those being replaced, and included that as a quantitative savings for the business case. There's also a minor savings on old AMR equipment expenses, and we added all that up, and we also subtracted out a new position for a data analyst position who would have to kind of maintain the server and help with all the extra information and data that we'd be getting from an AMI system to help us keep things running smoothly. So yeah, we're overall, we're looking at a net present value of negative 9.2 million over a 15-year average, and with the internal rate of return of negative 10.46%, return of investment of negative 42%, and a payback period of 31 years. So the numbers would show that it's not going to pay for itself, but there are numerous qualitative things that that need to be considered when looking at this going forward. And that's kind of the results of the business case. We tried to be neutral on what the outcome was, and we can't. We tried to be conservative but realistic at the same time when we came up with our numbers.
Stuart, do you want to talk a little bit about I know Taylor kind of touched on it, but just the next steps as well too, and what the timeline looks for that as well?
Yeah, so the next step, if the business case is approved and it's go forward with in an AMI system, we'd hope to go up for RFPs, hopefully yet this year, to do go out for our initial RFP, get a list of responses from the vendors, look them over, and then go back to the vendors that we identified as the best fits for Moorhead. And then from that, select the one that is the optimal fit. From there, enter contract with them, and then we've been looking at like a 10 to 15 year useful life on that AMI system with an initial build out of 1,000 roughly electric and water meters to be completed in 2023, by the end of 2023, with the full AMI build out from anywhere from 2023 to end of 2024, hopefully. And we'd like to potentially do that a little sooner, but supply chain issues are inhibitive for that to happen. And then after that, kind of look at if whether or not time of use rates is something that MPS is interested in doing.
Any questions? This is a good time to go ahead and ask those.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I was looking through the business case and there, there's some discussion about water loss through old meters. I'm wondering, is the water department determined, is there a significant amount of water loss through old meters because they're not metering properly? I know of other communities in Minnesota that have had significant water loss due to old meters. A lot of those were 30-year-old meters, of course, but and ours look to be a little bit newer than that, going back to 99, I suppose. But that could be another variable in this business case, I suppose, if it's quantifiable.
Yeah, I think a lot of what's looked at as the losses is, right now we read on a monthly basis. So if a customer has say a leaky faucet or a leaky toilet or forgets to leave a spigot on outside, we can't catch that. Hopefully they catch it in time, but we only see that once a month. So if we see a huge usage, we then try to call them. With the new system, we should have at least daily information. We would be getting some red flags saying, hey, above normal usage. We could call the customers, and one, we're going to keep their bills lower. Two, it's going to help with the reduction in the making of water. So we'll have to use less chemicals, things like that. So there's some value there as well too. From the perspective of how much are we not catching, Jake, you want to maybe answer that a little bit? I know we've done a lot of trying to keep up with the new meters installed and stuff like that, but Jake might have a better answer on where we're at with that.
Yeah, so we do test meters annually. We test everything from 8-inch to 3-inch. 8-inch are every year, 8 and 6 inches are every year. As you get smaller, it decreases to every other year. 3 and 4-inch meters. The meters we don't test very often are residential, are 5/8 and 3/4, and we do pull them out when we replace them, and we'll do a test. I've had a lot of discussion with some vendors on that. It's really hard to put a number to exactly what loss you are getting over time. So it's hard to really measure. There are some statistics out there, but it's pretty variable in that. So it's without an extensive research on that, I don't have a great number on it, but they do say, your older mechanical meters are going to possibly capture less water over time.
Jake, what's our oldest meters in town? I guess is probably the first question. And then, what's been our replacement plan?
Yeah, so on that chart, I believe it shows there's some bigger meters that are tested more frequently that are in the late 80s, I believe. Like I said, those are tested annually or within about 3 years, depending on the size. So we're keeping up with those. I believe when the AMR system came out, they replaced a lot of the water meters with the new ERTs, which the ERTs are what are starting to fail. There's only a certain battery life on them. So those are beginning to fail. A lot of those were maybe replaced in the early 90s, but not all of them. So the data that we have is same thing, pretty variable on, don't have my chart in front of me, but a lot of the meters are, between 20 to 25 years old. And as far as our replacement plan goes, since we've been looking at AMI for the last several years, that's been factored in on a replacement where we typically only replace the ERTs when they fail or when that battery life fails. We then go and replace the meter at the same time. So, the hope of a AMI system coming, there hasn't been a huge replacement. It's been more maintenance because the life of our entire system is starting to age. So this is a good time for the water department to upgrade and replace its system, just because there's about 5,000 ERTs that are a big bulk of them were installed from 99 to 2010. So it is starting to get old.
Yeah, about 9,000 were installed from 99 to 2010. We only looked at for the business case from 99 to 2005.
Yeah, the estimated of a water ERT is 15 to 20 years, so we're already pushing past that. The batteries are working well, but at some point they're going to begin to fail, and we have started to see that a little bit.
So the cost to replace those, is that included in the business case over the next certain 10 years, 10 years, I suppose?
Yeah, I think Stuart just said it. The 1999 to 2005s were part of the consideration.
Okay. Got it.
So that cost was included in the business case.
Yeah, the first 5,000.
Yeah.
And was it assumed that we would just replace them with existing similar equipment, or would we upgrade to like a hydrosonic meter or something like that?
Yeah, right now we're still using, for residential meters, we're still using the mechanical.
Okay.
But, with an AMI system and upgrading, we definitely look into, there's a lot of different meters out there. So we could definitely look into a possibly more accurate meter, things like that.
Yeah, we tried to look at which ones, might fail over the next, 5 to 10 years that would, potentially need to be replaced if we stood pat and didn't pursue an AMI system. That's why we only went to the 5,000.
Sure. I guess its second question's more on the electrical side that I have. Obviously, with the acceptance and the integration that we see in the EV market today, how does that play into the time of use? I mean, obviously, people would be charging their electric vehicles overnight, which would be, I'm assuming, non-peak hours. Would they be seeing a reduction in electrical costs versus what we have now?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Matt's going to do he'll do an update on the time of use shadow billing that we've got in July, once we have a full year's worth of data from Missouri River. So with that, they're looking at having, 3 or 4 different peak periods in the day during the business week, and then the weekends they'll go down to 2. But yeah, you'll have, during the day, your prices, of course, are going to be higher. In the summertime, of course, during that air conditioning period, probably 2, 3 o'clock to 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then something different in the wintertime, but that'll be your high price. And then if you want to charge from 10 o'clock till, 4 or 5 in the morning, yeah, your prices are your peak rate will be a lot, or your kilowatt hour rate will be a lot less. Taylor's got a response.
Mind if I add to that? With what we currently have, we would kind of be stuck at flat rates, so no, your EV rates wouldn't be affected. But by transitioning to AMI, giving us the capabilities to offer time of use rates, completely opens up a whole new world onto how we can set rates for EVs. The limits are kind of endless. We can get creative and offer a completely separate EV rate. It would cost us an extra meter and the customer another meter charge, but it'd come down to the commission and MRES and help us set specific rates, ideally incentivizing them to charge overnight when power is much cheaper, and we could pass it on to them at a much cheaper rate, which I think would be great for everybody. But at the same time, it would prevent them from charging it during the day when we need to be doing peak shaving and demand response.
There's ways to work around it with the current system and the current AMR setup that we've got. Like Taylor said, you'd have another meter, and you could, kind of like we do load control or load management, we could do something like that where we turn it off and it only turns on during a certain time of the day, which would be overnight periods. So there are ways to get around it without an AMI system. You know, this just incentivizes and minimizes how much extra work has to be done.
Thank you, man. You want to go? You might have stated this, but what's the time frame on this? And, you know, could there be any delays?
There definitely could be some delays. Right now, the meters themselves have been estimated at 40, possibly more weeks out. So we're kind of in the time crunch area to be able to hit that initial 1,000 meter installation by the end of next year. But that's the initial phase. That's going to be a bulk of getting the software bugs out. And we're anticipating that once we iron those out, the next phase, which would be in 2024, we should be able to only be eliminated by supply and the labor to swap out all of the electric meters. Water falls in line with that as well, depending on what our final decision is on how we handle things. 2025 would be kind of picking up the crumbs and finishing and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So ambitiously, we could do it in 2 years. Conservatively, having that third year makes the goal a lot more achievable.
And it's not affected by supply chain, or is it?
It is with
It
those
is.
longer meter lead times.
Okay.
They used to be able to have stuff like that in stock. But with 40-week lead times, we're looking at not getting meters until spring of next year if we were to order them tomorrow. Since we still have to go through the RFP process, vet the vendors, go through a formal bidding process, which also needs to be approved by a city council, adding an extra few weeks along the line. I'm optimistically we'd be getting meters in the summer and having a contractor under contract to perform those installations. But a lot of it comes down to how quickly we can move forward through this design development phase.
Orders from the manufacturer used to be 4 to 8 weeks. Now you're seeing 40+ weeks. So just that's the supply chain issue that we got.
Do you think it's going to be, what's the word I'm using, elongated, or is it going to be pushed out more? It could be.
That's a great question. I don't even know the answer to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at ordering, 20,000 electric meters and 15,000. That's, say you got a Duke Energy or a PG&E, that type system that wants 1 million meters, it's small potatoes compared to us. So it really depends on what's going on in the market and who's got orders in.
And, just it comes down to cost. So that's what I'm kind of worried about. But
Yep.
Thank you.
Real quick, how long have these AMI systems been around? And as technology changes, how flexible or as ease have they been able to be upgraded, if you will, for lack of terminology, throughout the system? Because if we're looking at roughly a 15-year life cycle on these, what's our plan for going forward, and what's the ease of that?
Good question. So we started this in the late 90s, so that system's lasted roughly 20 years. I think that's one of the considerations we'll be looking at as we put as the RFP gets put together is, the ability to extend the life of that. How backwards compatible will it be? Again, upgrades, I think, is as you continue to upgrade your system, things can get extended longer in the life expectancy of it. So that's the other part of that too, is from a financial standpoint, we're not planning to bond for this because a bond is 20 years. If the life expectancy is 10 to 15 years, you're going to be paying for it after it's out of date. So again, that's why we're looking at utilizing reserves, and we've built up our reserves for this project because we knew it wasn't going to pay for itself, and so we needed to fund it internally.
Also after that, along those lines, the AMI system's designed to be able to send out software upgrades throughout the communication system and kind of in the blink of an eye. So that part's covered. It kind of comes down to the mercy of the manufacturer to when they decide to stop providing support for that system. So what part of the next steps is vetting through those manufacturers to ensure that we are going to have enough support throughout those years and or be able to support it ourselves independently to be able to stretch it out as long as we deem fit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't want to have something like software is Windows XP, and we're in 10. So that's just kind of the concerns.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and you'd hope they'd make sure we wouldn't be buying something new in 5 years. And that's one of the goals of the RFP, is to make sure that, we're going to get our life expectancy out of this system. So I think we'll be looking at the bigger players out there, the Itrons, the Cooper Cannons, the Census type organizations that have been around for a long time, and they've got a vetted system, instead of something that's a smaller, more unique product.
Any other questions? I have one. You talked about legislative requirements that we may see. What is that a real concern, or is that just something that's down the road? I mean, is it presently being considered, any kind of legislative requirements?
You mean along the lines of possibly mandating AMI
Yeah,
systems or
right.
accuracy of meters or something?
Time of use systems?
From the legislative updates I get from MRES, they haven't covered any discussions along those lines. Travis would be a lot better equipped to answer that question, but I have a feeling he might not have heard anything as well up to this point.
I think there's several things that could come out of that, looking at water conservation, looking at EV chargers, looking at energy conservation. All those things could be a factor legislatively. We just don't know what we're going to get thrown at us. So,
Sure.
They continue to push more regulations and more requirements. All those need, could affect us in the future. So if we've got the technology, hopefully that helps minimize any potential changes down the road, where it could be even more costly to have to put an AMI system in at that point in time.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to accept the business case.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Hendrickson, seconded by McDougall, to accept the business case for AMI system. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I hear none, so we've accepted it, and go forth.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Item number 10, approve specifications and authorize advertisement of bids for shunt reactors.
Sure. I'll have Matt Marks, our project engineer, come up. Again, Matt's been fully involved with our DOE substation project. Again, this is requiring a bunch of requirements from WAPA and SPP, and this is basically to approve the specs for the shunt reactors. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt Marks, project engineer. So I guess the first thing I'll do is answer, or kind of try to answer, what is a shunt reactor? MPS does not currently have any of these in our system. The best way I can kind of explain it is that it's similar to putting a capacitor bank on a system, except that it kind of does the opposite thing. capacitor banks can help when the power factor is moving too far in one direction, and also when we're seeing voltage drops on our system due to longer distance or just other issues kind of on the electrical system. A shunt reactor can kind of do the opposite. When the voltages are getting too high, it can lower those voltages down, as well as correct power factor that is on the opposite end of the spectrum. The main benefit to these shunt reactors will be to the larger electric system beyond Moorhead Public Service and beyond Moorhead itself. And that is why the request or mandate to put these shunt reactors in actually came from Southwest Power Pool, which is the regional transmission operator that our power supplier, Western Area Power, is a part of. So this provides a benefit to the larger electrical system to correct some issues that they have seen in the past. We've actually seen it on our system when we've been doing maintenance or work on our transmission system during times of the year where there's less load, where less people are using electricity. The voltages kind of start going up. And having these shunt reactors available for Western Area Power to operate will alleviate some of those issues. And as a result, what's good for the larger electrical system is good for Moorhead Public Service as a customer of those power suppliers. So kind of with that said, the plan is for July to open bids for these shunt reactors. Based on the lead times, we'd be looking at October of 2023 for those reactors to arrive. The planned in-service date for these reactors, as well as the other equipment we will be installing at the Moorhead Tap substation, is June. I know it's summer of 2024. So the estimated costs for these is $750,000 per reactor. There are 2 reactors, so it's a total of $1.5 million. Since these reactors are being put in at the instruction of Southwest Power Pool, they will be included in tariff, which will allow us to recover costs for those over a 10 to 15-year time frame. There is in the specifications just kind of one detail on the insurance requirements that John Bolger is working on, kind of getting some clarification on what the best way to proceed for that is. So at this time, we're asking for your approval on the specifications contingent upon final legal approval by MPS attorney John Bolger. Are there any questions at this time?
No? Okay, I guess you've been very complete. Because my first question was going to be, what's a shunt reactor?
There you go.
And you hit that one right out of the park at the go. So, okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the authorization or the advertisement for bids.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by McDougal, seconded by Paulson. Further discussion? Hendrickson?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
McDougal?
Yes.
Thompson? Yes. Thank you. Item number 11, approve the policy on liability claims.
Sure, I'll take this, and if you've got any legal questions, I'll leave those for Mr. Bolger.
Okay.
Again, Moorhead Public Service Commission has been involved in a couple of liability claims over the recent past. Part of the review of those and was a suggestion to bring a policy forward. John Bolger has provided a draft policy for your guys' approval, and really just kind of sets forth the process and how we manage claims going forward, and how the League of Minnesota Cities handles them, and that we're going to follow their guidance with the determination on whether a claim is valid or not. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions for myself or John.
Questions? I think we've read it, and it appears to be complete.
pretty straightforward. You know, again, if there's a, you know, after a claim's been approved or been reviewed and then we find out there's additional information, it goes back for redetermination. So it has pretty good value to it, and again, it follows what insurance is telling us to, is deemed appropriate, so.
Right, I like that it's very clear, succinct. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve this policy.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Paulson, seconded by Hendrickson to approve the policy on liability claims against MPS. Further discussion? Seeing none, Hendrickson,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Okay. Item number 12, closed meeting for executive session. This meeting will now be closed for executive session as permitted by Minnesota statute, section 13D.05, subdivision 3C3, to discuss possible property transactions involving parcel number 58.424.0010 in Moorhead. Will we be taking any action?
Not tonight.
Okay. So further action is not expected in open session, therefore we will adjourn upon conclusion of executive session. I entertain a motion to close the meeting for executive session.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.